Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 113, Rash to Judgment. As usual, we'll start with a brief summary of the episode. Fran and Maxwell finally go on their second date. However, Fran's body is covered in to use the pharmacist's words, nauseous making rash. Just before things look like they're about to get intimate, Fran insists that they call home to let the family know that they'll be late and pawns the phone off on Maxwell so she can sneak out for medical attention. At the Metropolitan Medical Center, Fran receives treatment from brand new doctor and former junior high classmate Frankie Crescitelli, who gives her a shot of cortisone and sends her on her way. Unfortunately, her body did not react well to the shot, resulting in an allergic reaction, doubling her body size, and putting the kibosh on any physical intimacy. She, Maxwell, Niles, Cece, and Sylvia return to the medical center, where they determined that Fran's original allergic reaction could be traced back to a squash allergy, namely Sylvia's dressing up of a diet soup with pumpkin tortellini stuffed with squash. After another shot, Fran mostly returns to her regular size, but puts off Maxwell's advances because her derriere remains swollen. Bernadette, do you want to add anything?
I do not.
All right, would you like to take us to scene one in the kitchen?
Yes, so we are starting in the kitchen, and at the table we have Gracie, Fran, and Sylvia. And Gracie starts off the conversation by talking about that she's been wearing a training bra for 3 months. And she asks, what is it exactly that it trains them to do? And Fran says, honey, you really can't train them. Eventually, they're just going to get older and go their separate ways. And Sylvia said, well, funny you should bring this up. Since I started my diet, I went down an entire cup size. And Fran laughs, kind of like, what cup size did you go down to, Ma? The Stanley? And she, of course, laughs at her own joke. Side note, I'm sorry to interrupt already, but side note, when you heard Stanley Cup, I'm sure you immediately thought of like the hockey
Correct.
Stanley Cup. But for me, just because of our current pop culture, I guess what's going on in the US with have you heard of the Stanley Cup, like the drinking cup?
I have. I've heard there's like a huge they're very much in demand and I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah, so there's like this whole Stanley Cup craze currently. And so because of that, my brain's like, they didn't have that back then. Oh wait, that's the hockey trophy. But anyway, you know, Sylvia's like, oh, never mind. I'm doing good. Even the soup that I brought over is diet cabbage, tomato, onion soup mix. And Fred's like, yeah, it's delicious. Sylvia continues. Plus, I added a little seasoning to give it some flavor. And Fred's like, with what? And Sylvia says, tortellini.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, at this time, Val bangs on the side door. Fran goes and answers it, and Val comes in and she's like, "You're not going to believe what I got from my cousin Giggy. 2 tickets to the launching party of Michael Bolton's new opera album." And Fran immediately is like, "Oh my God, Michael Bolton!" And then she's like, "What? Wait a minute. Your cousin Giggy knows Michael Bolton?" And Val's like, "You bet. Do you know Giggy's responsible for him cutting all his hair off?" And Fred's like, "How?" And Val's like, "Apparently, you can't say Bolton without spitting out your gum." And so Sylvia's like, "And for that, Michael Bolton gave your schmuck cousin tickets?" And Fred's like, "Let me guess. The tickets fell out of Bolton's pocket when he was beating Giggy up." And I
Yep.
was like, "Uh-huh." How lucky are we? So are you free this Saturday night? And at this, Gracie starts laughing.
In a very obnoxious way.
Yeah, like, is she free Saturday? And then, Fran gives her a look and Grace is like, what? You're not. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so Fran's like, I'd love to go. I only wish this was something that Mr. Sheffield would invite me to, Michael Bolton. um, sing such romantic songs. And Gracie's like, Daddy asked you out, for the first date. Why don't you ask him out on the second? Fran's like, well, Ma raised me to believe it's the man that should do the courting of the woman. And Sylvie's like, sweetheart, I didn't know what I was saying. It was the 60s and I was taking a lot of antacids.
Hmm.
And so Fran's like, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna march in there, and ask Mr. Sheffield out. And Val's like, oh, you go, girl. And Fran goes through the kitchen, and Val turns to the other two, and he's like, I'm no genius, but I don't think she's gonna be able to get tickets at this late date. And Sylvie's
Yep.
like, Val, you really don't need the I'm no genius part.
Hmm.
And that's the opening scene. Do you have anything you'd like to add to it?
Um, just a quick observation that it's interesting to me that Val is the one in possession. Well, Giggy got the tickets from
Uh-huh.
Burton, gave them to Val, and then
Yeah.
Fran is basically taking them from Val.
Yeah, I feel bad for Val. And
Yeah,
like Val of course doesn't realize that again, Fran has basically commandeered the tickets from her.
correct.
So poor Val, who is just trying to be a good friend and inviting her friend, now
Yeah.
has her ticket taken from her. Although,
Hmm.
like technically speaking, I don't recall did she didn't have the physical tickets with her there, right?
I don't think so.
So like if Val really wanted to, she wouldn't have to hand him over, but Val's a good friend, so
Yeah, but like Fran just assumes and doesn't like actually get clearance from Val that this is okay. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Like
'Cause Val was excited. She wanted to
exactly.
go. I felt
It
bad for Val.
exactly. It doesn't feel good for Val. But
No.
anywho, so I'll take us to scene two,
Mhm.
in the Fine Family home. We're in the bathroom and Fran walks in and we see Sylvia is like on like a step ladder or a chair or something, and she's like smoothing like wallpaper. And Fran walks in and Sylvia asks her, what does she think? That she's almost finished. And Fran's like, what are you, nuts? Don't you think it's a little crooked? The wallpaper pattern are stripes and they are clearly slanted. And Sylvia says, not to me. And we see that her glasses are at tilt and whatever. So Fran's like, wow, you're scaring me. And she's like, our people are not talented in this regard. That's why there's no Home Depot in Jerusalem. But anyway, she's like, more importantly, I got up the nerve to ask Mr. Sheffield out on a date, and he said yes. And Sylvia's like, oh, I figured that when I saw the love bite on your neck. And Fran's like, what? And she like goes towards the medicine cabinet that has a mirror on it so she can look at her neck. And Sylvia's like, oh, enough already. You don't have to hide. You can have a hickey at your age. And then she comments sort of to herself in her stage whisper, you can have osteoporosis at your age. And Fran's like looking at her reflection. She's like glancing at her neck, her shoulder. She's like, oh, it goes all the way down my body. And Sylvia's like, Mazel tov, darling. And Fran's like, Mom, stop it. This is a terrible rash. It's disgusting. I'm supposed to go out with Mr. Sheffield tonight. And Sylvia tells her to put some salve on it. And so Fran goes into the medicine cabinet and pulls out a tube, opens it, sniffs it. Ma, this is anchovy paste. Sylvia tells her to taste the dippity do and see if it's mint jelly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Needless to say, bottom line, Fran has a disgusting rash, but not a hickey. And going to her mother's house was not helpful in
Nope.
treating it.
Nope.
Do you have anything you want
Um,
to add?
no, I don't.
All right. Would you like to take us to the pharmacy?
Yes. So we're at the pharmacy and it looks familiar.
You don't
Maggie and
say.
Fran, yeah, Maggie and Fran are there together. And, Fran asks Maggie if she could do her a favor, go over to the fragrance counter and pick up some perfume. And Fran hands Maggie a list. And Maggie's like, Fran, you want me to buy 12 bottles of perfume? And Fran's like, samples, honey, samples. So off Maggie goes, and then Fran approaches the pharmacist and asks, excuse me, I'm wondering whether you can help me. And the pharmacist was like, hey, I remember you. And Fran's like, what? Oh. And the pharmacist was like, wait, don't tell me. I never forget a condition. You came in about ticks. Fran's like, no. Pharmacist is like, worms. No. And The pharmacist, by the way, is familiar and has a very loud voice. And the pharmacist is like, lice. You had head lice. I knew it. It was a parasite. And Fran's like, congratulations. Now, if you could just keep your voice down, I want you to tell me where I can find something to help me with this. And she like pulls down her collar so that the pharmacist can see the rash that's like alongside her neck. And
Mm-hmm.
the pharmacist is like, ew, why are you showing me that? It's nauseous making.
Right.
Nauseous making. And Prince like, well, if you can't stand looking at a simple rash, why do you work here? And the pharmacist is like, it's near my house.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it continues to say in a loud voice, does the rash have any oozing or odor? And Prince's like, shh. And the pharmacist is like, has it formed a crust? And Prince's like, stop it. Shh. Never mind. I'll go find something myself. So Fran goes over to the shelf, picks something up, turns around, and then literally bumps into Cece.
Mm-hmm.
And Fran's like, oh, Miss Babcock, hi. And at the same time, both of them hide whatever they're holding behind their back.
Yep.
And Cece's like, what's that in your hand? And Prince's like, oh, what's that in your hand? Cece's like, I think I got a fairly good look at that box. Prince's like, I think I got a fairly good look at that bottle. And Cece goes, interesting situation. And she kind of moves over to try to take a peek at what is behind Fran's back, but Fran moves along with her. And Fran's like, certainly is. And she too tries to kind of crane her neck to see what's behind Cece's neck, but Cece moves at the same time.
Right.
And Cece's like, let's just say no one will ever know what you have, and no one will ever know what I have. And
Mm-hmm.
Fred's like, "That's all fine with me." But of course, at this moment, the pharmacist approaches and says, "I know what you both got, but a date with each of you will keep me quiet." And Fran immediately says, "A terrible rash." And she kind of looks at Cece, expecting her to join in, but Cece says, "Pick me up at Thursday at 8 p.m. or 8 o'clock."
Mm-hmm.
And that is the scene. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I just want to comment, when Fran approaches the pharmacist and he's like, hey, I remember you. I never forget a condition. That's
Uh
just
huh.
what every person in a pharmacy wants to hear.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
again, he's not a good pharmacist. The entire scene, I'm like, HIPAA, HIPAA, HIPAA.
yeah, no kidding. Um, anyway, he leaves much to be desired. Anyway, I'll take us to later in the night. We're now back at the Sheffield home, and we're in the foyer, and Fran's there, and I think this is one of those times we need to talk about what she's wearing.
Yes.
Okay, so she is dressed for date night. Her hair is big but not too high, but just very round and fluff and very full. And she is in a black dress. It has a long neck, a high neck, long sleeves, and it goes to the floor with like I don't know, is that a mermaid cut? But
Kind
anyway,
of, yeah.
it's it is not her normal attire, shall we say. She is
Mhm.
covered from basically her neck down.
Mhm.
And Maxwell sees her and he says, Miss Fine, you look absolutely brilliant. And she's like, brilliant? That is so something I've never heard before. And
Mhm.
then he starts telling her, and Niles at some point walks in and he's standing behind Fran. And Maxwell is telling her that I want you to know that I'm genuinely thrilled that you asked me out this evening. And Fran gestures while Maxwell's speaking, she gestures to Niles to scratch her back as she's standing there. And so she says, that's so good to hear. And Max was like, well, not only that, but I wanted to tell you that had you not asked me out with you, I would probably, no, not probably, I was actually, and she's like, you know what, just, that's so sweet. Go get the car. I just got to get my purse here. I have to get my purse. And so Maxwell smiles and walks out. And so it's now just Niles and Fran there. And Niles is just like, Miss Fine, no one wants this to happen more than I do, but your whole body is covered with blotches. Why don't you just cancel this evening? And Fran grabs her shawl and her it's like a burgundy velvety shawl. And she's
Mhm.
like, 5 years, 2 dates. I don't care if I gotta lose a toe and keep it on ice in my purse. I am going. And she walks out the door and we see her, scratching her back with her shawl.
Mhm.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Yep.
All right. Would you take us to the album launch party?
Yes. So we kind of get a pan of the venue. There's soft piano music playing. There's everybody milling about, obviously all dressed up. It's a nice kind of fancy um, kind of
Venue.
venue. And there's like kind of some stairs to the side where people are coming in. And so that's where Fran and Maxwell enter. And as they are going down the stairs, Fran is kind of rubbing up alongside the banister to try to, scratch at her her back, her side. When they reach the bottom, Maxwell offers to go get them some drinks, and Fran takes that opportunity to quickly grab like a long stemmed flower from a vase nearby so that
Hmm.
she can kind of access her back with it.
Yep.
But Maxwell quickly returns because it turns out the bar is 40 deep. And of course, as soon as he appears, she flings that flower away. And Maxwell asks if she wants to have a quick dance. And, she'd love to. So they go onto the dance floor, and Fran is like rubbing up against Maxwell's face.
Hmm.
Really into it. And Maxwell's like, "I'm sorry, I should have like shaved before we came out." And Prince's like, "No, it's good. It's good. It's really good." And
Yeah.
and then they're like kind of dancing over, and again because Fran is so itchy, she's like really trying to get, you know, um contact. So but in doing so, she's up against Maxwell, but she's also rubbing up against someone. A
Hmm.
man who turns around and, "Oh, Michael Bolton, Michael Bolton." "Oh, I just love your voice. It's so soulful and raspy. You know, yours is the only voice that can cut through a fine family function." And Michael Bolton, who again was very kind of confused and like not happy about her having rubbed up against him, is like, yes, thanks a lot, I think." And Maxwell, puts his hand out to shake Michael Bolton's and says, "Hello, Michael, Maxwell Sheffield. Like, listen, congratulations on your CD. It's really wonderful." And Farron continues, "And I just love your new look." And Michael Bolton's like, "Yes, the big hair, it's just, that's not happening anymore." And Fran, of course, has her big hair. It's like, uh-huh. And Michael Bolton quickly is like, "Oh, on men, on men." And so Fran, perks up a little. "Oh, uh-huh." And Fran then immediately is like, "Oh, Michael, Michael, would you mind? I am your biggest fan. Would you please autograph this for me?" Because she had like pulled out, is it like a napkin or some type of paper from her bag?
Yeah.
And Michael is like, "Oh, I don't," and he gets cut off. "Oh, just do it on my back. Just do it on my back and press hard because that ballpoint doesn't work so good." And so
Hmm.
Michael starts like doing his autograph. And of course, Fran is getting really into it because her back itches. So she's like, "Yeah," to Fran, "to the left, to the left, to the left. My biggest fan. Ooh, to the right, to the right, to the right. Okay, yeah, I am very, very, very." And Maxwell cuts in, "Is fine." And Fran's like, "Oh, okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really good, really good." And she's like
Hmm.
really into it. And Michael Bolton understandably is like, "I'm gonna go now." And Farron's like, "Okay." And Michael Bolton's like, "This is weird." And
Yep.
he walks away. And again, a very understandable reaction in the situation.
Frankly, I didn't think he reacted enough.
Yeah, he was very soft spoken and very
Hmm.
kind of understated. And I don't really know much about his personality or anything, but anyway, at this point, the announcer, um, you know, uh, it- it's like, "Good evening, Sony Classical Michael Bolton, welcome you, to this launch for his new Arias album." And at this point, Michael Bolton actually comes up and starts singing. Um,
Hmm.
And at this time, everybody's kind of gathering a lot around to listen. Maxwell holds Fran from behind. It's very sweet. They're swaying. And then, I mean, even before they start talking, I can see a shot of Fran kind of having Maxwell's hands kind of go in circles around her stomach as if
Yeah.
scratching. Um,
Yeah.
but
Super
anyway,
awkward. Like
yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
But anyway, like we get a close up of them, and Maxwell's like, "You look so beautiful tonight. I rather wish we were alone." And again, Fran has him rub her stomach,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, "You don't know how good that makes me feel." She's like really into it, and so Maxwell's like, "What do you say the two of us just slip away?" And Fran's like, yes, yes. Oh, I can't wait to get out of this dress." And of course, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Maxwell perks up, and he's like, "Then I'll go get us a room." And Vern's like, "Okay." Um, and as Maxwell leaves, you kind of see the realization on Fran's face of like, "Oh, wait, like I have a rash from all over my body."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, So, yeah, do you have anything to add to that scene?
No.
Okay, can you take us to the bedroom?
Yes. So we're now in their hotel room, and Maxwell opens the door. Here we are. It's a nice looking hotel room for the record.
Yeah.
He offers her a glass of champagne. She says, "Sounds great." As he's like getting the champagne, she like slips an ice cube out of the like um ice bucket and starts
Mhm.
rubbing it on her neck, and she starts moaning. And he's like, "Hey, wait for," moaning in a pleasurable way. And he's like, "Hey, wait for me." And as he walks over, she tosses the ice cube away. We actually see it bounce. And then he like is about. I think he like kisses her hand, and she like pulls it back. And she's like, "You know what? I think we should just call the house first and make sure everyone knows we're gonna be late." And he's like, "Now?" She's like, "Yeah, we don't want them to worry." So she like grabs the phone, dials, "Hi, sweetie. Hi, Angel. Yeah, good. Yeah, that sounds fabulous, Angel. Yeah. Why don't you tell your daddy?" And she hands the phone out to Maxwell. "Gracie, she really wants to talk to you." And he's like, "Now?" She like makes him take the phone, and he's like, "Hello, sweetheart." And Fran, you can practically see the wheels turning in her head. If you're going to be blabbing on the phone all night, I'm just going to run downstairs and get an autographed picture from Michael Bolton for mom. And she like grabs her stuff and starts racing towards the door. He's like, "Now?" She's like, "I'll just be a minute. I'll just a minute." And she like races out the door, leaving Maxwell on the phone.
Mhm.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Side note, do you think that she had pre-planned that with Gracie to buy her time, or do you think Gracie is just actually wanting to talk to Maxwell that much?
I mean, it seemed like overkill on Gracie's
Mhm.
part. So I like your hypothesis that Fran had like planned that ahead of time, except for the fact that it doesn't seem like it occurred to Fran that Maxwell might want to be physically intimate.
Mhm. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But
that doesn't really make a lot of sense, I think is what
yeah.
we're saying. But
Mhm.
go ahead. Talk to us
So we
about her experience with the brand new minted doctor.
Yeah, so we cut to the hospital, to the room, and Fran is sitting on the bed, scratching all over. "Where is he? Where is he? Where's the doctor?" And the nurse is like, Dr. Crisatelli will be with you in just one moment. And Fran's like, "Crisatelli, this is a matter of life or death. I need a Glickman or a Schwartz." And at that moment, the doctor walks in and he introduces himself. Um, as Dr. Crisatelli asks her how she's doing. And Fran's like, "Oh, I've been better. I have a terrible, terrible rash." And Dr. Crisatelli is like, "Can you just give me a moment or a minute? I need to settle in. You're my first patient." And Fran's like, "Of the night?" And he's like, "No, ever." Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Fran's like, "Wait a minute, Crisatelli, Crisatelli. You wouldn't happen to be Frankie Crisatelli from Parsons Junior High?" And the doctor's like, "Yeah, yeah, the best 6 years of my life." And he
Mm-hmm.
continues and he's like, "No, wait, I know you. You're Fran, Finet." And Fran's like, "It's fine again. They didn't buy it." And she
Mm-hmm.
goes on like, "How did you become a doctor? You couldn't even play operation." He's like, "Just calm down. Real people are a lot bigger than that little cardboard guy."
Mhm.
And Frenemy is like, I saw a Lieberman out there.
And what does
And
she do
Dr.
when she says that?
She like tries to hop off, right?
No, she grabs the nurse's lapels.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And the doctor's like, Fran, take it easy. That was a long time ago. I'm a professional now. And Fran's like, okay, I'm sorry. And so the doctor and the nurse kind of go behind Fran, and the doctor's like, let's have a look see. And, they unzip the back of her dress. And then he like freaks out silently so that Fran can't see. But he's kind of like, miming to like the nurse. The nurse also
Mhm.
is not looking like it's obvious from their expressions that the rash does not look good. And Fran's like, what's the matter? What's the matter? And Dr. Christatelli can't help but say, "Oh God!" And then he clears his throat and he's like, "Nothing. I can take care of this." And he kind of hits the nurse's shoulder to kind of like have her help him. And the nurse preps a needle, and so doctor's like, with a shot." And Fred's like, fine, give me anything. The man of my dreams is right across the street in a beautiful hotel room, and he's finally ready to get intimate. And Dr. Crescatella is like, I'm going to give you the shot of cortisone. It should straighten you right out. And at this time, the nurse and the doctor kind of have a friendly sideways on the bed. And the doctor says, I'm going to um, put this in your rear because there's a lot less pain, in a big fleshy area. And so, of course, Fran gets like an offended look on her face and says, I take it you got a D in bedside manner, Frankie. Um, but he gives her the shot, and immediately she sits up and she's like, oh, like the itchiness stopped already. Wish me luck. And she like hops off the bed and is like out the door quickly. And of course, it's once she's gone that the doctor's like, "Oh, wait a minute." And he tries to yell after her, "Are you allergic to any medication?" And of course, Fran's long gone.
Mhm.
So he turns to the nurse and he's like, "I'm supposed to ask that first, right?" Um, and then he even did you notice he's kind of has the nurse help him take off his gloves?
He needs the nurse to help him take off his gloves because he starts trying to like pull it off like one finger at a time, and then he just looks
Yeah, it's not
sad and
working.
yeah.
Yeah. But side note, in terms of like this is his first patient ever, that's like not how that works because you
No.
have residencies.
Uh-huh.
Like, so anyway, do you have anything you'd like to add to that scene?
I do not.
Okay, take us back to the hotel room.
So Maxwell is still on the phone with Gracie, and he's clearly trying to get off the phone with her, saying, well, okay, sweetheart, it sounds like you had a really very fun day. And she's like, wait, 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 there's more. So I go over to Susie's house, and her cousin and Niles makes the mistake of walking into the living room. What's her name, Niles? Lily, says Niles. Yeah, yeah, Lily. She is so funny, Daddy. What? Daddy wants to talk to you, she says, handing the phone to Niles. And Niles is like, yes, sir. And he's like, put her to bed, and gets off the phone. And of course, he like looks at himself in the mirror, his hair, he like fixes his hair, he's unbuttoned his shirt, he's undone untied his tie, and it's like hanging over his shoulders. Again, his shirt is open. And we hear from the other room Mr. Fran saying, Mr. Sheffield, I'm back. And he says, you wait right there. Don't you move. Don't move a thing. And he's like going towards the like counter with the champagne on, and he's pouring the second glass. And she's like, okay, how long have we dreamt of this moment? And like he turns around and sees her and stops. And she's like, what? And like he's just like horrified. Um, she does not look like herself. um she's like, wait, what's the matter? And he like turns the mirror so she can see herself, and she can see that her body has swollen up to at least twice its normal size. And she reacts poorly. Oh my god. She looks in the mirror, and he's telling her like, it's all right, don't panic, it's going to be fine, it's going to be okay. And she's like, no. And she's like, oh my god, I'm going to faint, I'm going to faint. And like he, I don't exactly remember how it happens, but like they're by the bed and she's like saying she's gonna faint, and then she like faints on top of him, pushing him back onto the bed, and basically his reaction is no. And
Mhm.
yeah, needless to say, this night did not go as he expected.
Mhm.
Do you have anything
And
you want to
so
add?
no, we find ourselves back in the or not the hotel, the hospital room. Inexplicably, Niles and Cece are there along with Maxwell, Sylvie, and Fran. And we have the same doctor, Dr. Crisatelli, and
Mm-hmm.
Fran's like, "Oh, maybe we need to bring in a specialist, at least a doctor with 2 days experience."
Right.
And the doctor's like, this is a reaction that happens sometimes with cortisone, prednisone, toblerone, and then he laughs at his own joke. And Sylvie's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Doctor, I have an enlarged daughter. Do something." And, you know, Fran's like, "Oh, Mr. Sheffield, you're never gonna find me attractive again." And she starts sobbing. And Maxwell tries to comfort her. "Oh, Miss Fine, don't you be ridiculous. There's two, three, six times as much of you to love." Um, and Fran's like, "Oh, that's very sweet." And then she turns to the doctor. "Kill me, Frankie, kill me." And the doctor's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, I'm just going to give you a shot to counteract the cortisone, okay? It won't hurt a bit. I just need to find a big, fleshy, pinky anything." And at this time, the nurse comes in and she announces that they traced the original rash to a food allergen. And she asks Fran if she's had recently any gourds, pumpkins, squash. And Fran's like, "No, no, unless, and then she addresses Niles. "There wasn't any in the chicken you made last night, right, Niles?" And Niles is like, "Of course not. It was roast chicken with sage." And Cece's like, "Sage? I am allergic to sage." And Niles is like, "Oh, really? I thought time was your enemy."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so Sylvie is like, "Excuse me, doctor, but if someone jazzed up a diet soup with pumpkin tortellini filled with squash and she ate it, would it be my fault?" And Franny is like, "Ma?" And Sylvie's like, "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry." And so they're like kind of comforting each other. And Cece says to Maxwell, "Maxwell, there's a horrifying glimpse of the future. The 250-pound apple doesn't fall far from the tree." And that's the scene. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
to add?
I do not.
Okay, can you take us to the kitchen?
Sure. So it's at least the next morning, and Fran is sitting behind the like kitchen counter, and Maxwell comes in and greets her, saying something along the lines of "Glad to see that you're back to normal." And she's like, "Yeah, much better, thank you." And he leans over against the counter towards her. It's a real pity we were interrupted. I thought maybe tonight we could pick up where we left off. And she's like dunking her like tea bag or whatever. She's like, Mr. Sheffield, I really prefer when things are kind of spontaneous. And he's like, well, and he kind of like pulls back. Well, perhaps you're right. Maybe it's a sign we should wait. And she's like, yeah, we'll know when the time is right. And he walks out of the room, and she gets up and mutters to herself, boy, I could just kill you, Ma. And she walks out from behind the counter, and we see that her derriere is multiple times its normal size. And that, I believe, is the episode.
That is the episode.
Is there anything you'd like to speak about before we get into our shticks?
So not a fan of the last bit of this episode. Um, with the swelling and all of that.
I knew
Uh,
that was going to be your reaction, but I was wondering if the fact that Fran and Maxwell took a step forward would outweigh that. But I guess I will wait until we do our episode ratings to find
yeah,
out.
it was so very 90s
Yes.
how that all
Yes.
happened. Um, so yeah, uh, generally I was like, "Oh, really? We have to do this?" It's the classic fat suit from the 90s.
Yep.
Like again, if you ever watched Friends and Monica had those flashbacks, yeah, it was very 90s. So that'll come up again in our shtick with 90s nostalgia. But yeah, so classic, the nanny style of, again, you have a little movement, and then things fall apart. But yeah, anything you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I can wait until our six.
Okay. So let's start with favorite fashion. Did you have any favorite fashion this episode?
I think the only thing worth commenting on, well, there are two things maybe, but the only one really worth commenting on is Fran's date attire, which we've already described. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it's not her, but it's very classy.
Yeah.
And yes, it is covering a body length rash, but for what it is, it's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Yeah.
any fashion you want to talk about?
So I actually really liked Cece's red jacket.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it
I
was
mean,
an interesting choice for her, considering that the actress was pregnant and they were trying to hide the fact that she was pregnant. It just brought so much attention to her.
well, so it's long. And so like from the side, that kind of like tried to like hide her bump because it was so kind of like the silhouette was forgiving in that way. And then they put her
Mm-hmm.
in like a darker kind of outfit underneath to try to again disguise her pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
But she was wearing, I believe she was wearing like red lipstick that kind of matched her red jacket. I wouldn't necessarily wear that shade, but it was still I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's I will say that there is an outfit Fran wore that seemed very Fran-esque with the is it the leopard print outfit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
That
sounds right.
seemed very classic Fran. And then I will note that we finally get a bathrobe again. In that last scene, she's wearing like a bathrobe that had various cups of coffee.
Yeah. Which I think we've seen before, but I'm not
Mhm.
certain considering how many bathrobes she actually has. But I will
Yeah.
say I really liked her hair in that scene.
Mhm. Yeah. I just feel like we haven't seen as many bathrobes this season as we have in previous seasons. Is that fair to
I,
say?
I think that's fair to say.
Yep. Any other fashion?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Let's go on to notable New Yorkers then. And obviously from the get-go, Michael Bolton.
He's a singer, social activist, songwriter known for his charm, good looks, poignant lyrics, and soulful voice. And that's according to our friends at imdb.com.
Mhm. Did you put Home Depot or no?
We've talked about it before, and basically then we said it's the largest American home improvement corporation, according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Did you put Dippity Doo?
I did not, so I
Okay.
didn't know if that was an actual thing.
I don't know either.
Well, apparently it is. According to our friends at Google, um, it, it's a hair product. It looks like it was according to our friends at TikTok, it was hair gel that was popular among women in the 60s and 70s, and then became popular with men in the 1980s. Um, Looks like it's still around.
Mm-hmm. Did you put the specific album that they were
I did
like?
not,
Okay.
because I
Now
thought it
Michael,
was more of a
go ahead.
like. I thought it was more of a like his latest aria album, as in like lowercase a, not capital A.
Okay. Um, then I didn't identify which specific aria he sings, but it's a well-known aria.
Oh,
Um, did
I
you
didn't
catch?
identify it because I didn't recognize it.
Yeah,
So
like I didn't recognize the first part of it, but then it like builds to a certain part that is very familiar. But I apologize, listeners. I couldn't identify which specific, like the name of that aria. Um, but again, that was a reference.
mhm.
Something. Um, I feel like generally speaking, you don't have much
There
this.
weren't that many. Um,
Now who played Dr. Crisatelli?
he was played by Scott Bio. Is that how he
Mhm.
pronounces his last name? He's an actor
I
who's
think.
known for his roles on Happy Days, Diagnosis Murder, and Joni Loves Chachi, according to our
Mhm.
friends at imdb.com.
Yeah, I definitely recognized him from Happy Days as Chachi. Um, did you put down Operation the game
I
or no?
did. It's a board game in which players use tweezers to try to take out Cavity Sam's 12 funny ailment parts. And that's according to our friends at Hasbro.com.
Yeah, and to be fair to Dr. Crisatelli, yeah, humans are bigger than
That is true. And
cardboard.
they do not require tweezers to treat all of their ailments.
Yeah, and we won't like electrocute you if you
Correct.
touch the sides. Um, but yeah, Toblerone. Did you put that one?
I did. Toblerone, it's a brand of Swiss chocolates owned by Mondelez International, which is known for its triangular prism shape and engraved lettering. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Did you have anything else?
I have just a few more. Fred
Okay.
Stoller played Fred the pharmacist. He's an American
Okay.
actor, comedian, writer, and voice actor, best known for guest starring on Everybody Loves Raymond as Gerard. That's according to our friends at IMDb. I assume we must have talked about him the last time he was on, but just in case. Um,
hmm
I also want to mention uh, Dr. Crestatelli mentions cortisone and prednisone. Those are both actual medications. Cortisone injections are actually used to relieve irritation, pain, and swelling. The side effects include short-term flare of swelling in the joint. That's according to our friends at mayoclinic.org. Cortisone, subs cortisone. Prednisone is an anti-inflammatory used to treat swelling, severe allergies, and other problems. What I thought was particularly interesting is that it's available as a tablet in solution or as a delayed release tablet. So a shot was not included on the Mayo Clinic's page about it.
Hmm. hmm
And then there was Parsons Junior High, which used to be a New York City public school, which closed in June 2007. That's according to our friends at QCHRON.com. And then finally, the last one I had was Casey Williams. She plays the nurse. Did she look familiar to you?
Not offhand.
So she previously played a nurse in the episode Where's the Pearls? That's the one where Fran ends up with amnesia after hitting her head trying to take um, Elizabeth Taylor's black pearls somewhere.
hmm
And so Casey Williams played the nurse there, and she also played the sales girl in the episode Danny's Dead and Who's Got the Will. That's she was Fran's coworker when Fran was working at the department store after she quit working at the Sheffield house.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to
Cool.
mention them. But
Yeah.
otherwise, then I'm out.
Yeah, because they are recurring
Mhm.
in the series. So then are you ready for Yerishikop?
Always. So we have Schmuck, which is the beginning. Sylvia refers to, or I think it was Sylvia refers to Gigi as the Schmuck cousin. A schmuck is a contemptible or foolish person. It is not usually used as a term of endearment. Mazel tov is what Sylvia says to Fran when Sylvia thinks that Fran's rash is a series of hickeys down all down her body. Um, to quote Fran from season one, Mazel tov means pip pip in Yiddish. It really means like congratulations
hmm
or good wishes. And then the last thing I had was Fran refers to Dr. Glickman, Dr. Schwartz, Dr. Lieberman. We've talked about this previously, but I figure it's worth talking about again. She's clearly looking for a Jewish doctor.
hmm
In 1934, 60% of medical school applicants were Jewish. By 1988, that had dropped to 51%. At the end of the 20th century, there were an estimated 80 to 100,000 Jewish doctors in the United States, meaning approximately 12 to 15% of all doctors, even though Jews make up 2% of the United States population. And I will again tell one of my favorite jokes. There's this old Jewish joke. There's a big controversy on the Jewish view of when life begins. In Jewish tradition, the fetus is not considered viable until after it graduates from medical school.
There you go.
Anyway, I just think that's a funny enough joke that it's worth telling at every opportunity.
Mhm.
It is not an appropriate reflection of Jewish law halacha, but still funny.
Well, and then I think to Fran's cousin, who is also a Jewish doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
starred by Jon Stewart.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay. So then shall we jump into 90s nostalgia?
absolutely. Old
You go
cars,
first. Yep.
as always.
And then we also saw an old New York City skyline,
Yep. Uh,
obviously pre 2011 or 2001.
Correct. We also see multiple old phones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like including like the cordless one, um,
Yep.
but like with like the antenna still.
Hmm.
Um, Again, I mentioned like the whole fat suit and all that kind of stuff was just very 90s. It feels like.
Hmm. Agreed. I don't think they would make that today.
Mm-mm. And just also like the quality of it is also like 90s. It's not as advanced too to like prosthetics like this, you know, today.
Hmm.
Cuz it's like she can't really um move much like her face and stuff like underneath.
Hmm.
But
Right.
yeah. And then like I was going to say like I don't know why, but like the perfume counter at the drugstore. First of all, I didn't
Interesting.
it seemed more that seems more like a mall thing.
It does.
Like, I was just questioning that, like, in general,
Hmm.
because I could see, like, you go into, like, a Macy's or some department store, and you have, like, the fragrance counter.
Hmm.
Not so much 90s, but just a question.
Well, I mean, I would say the whole pharmacy looks very dated.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And again, today, you could easily see, like, maybe Fran going online and Googling what to do about her rash, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, as a side note, her thinking that she could go just pop in and out of an ER
It's kind of crazy.
is crazy.
Agreed.
Like, yep. So yeah, anything else you want to talk about
I don't.
regarding the 90s? Okay. Well, exciting news is that we actually get to add to our kiss count.
Yes, we
If you could
do.
remind our lovely listeners prior to today, what was our kiss count?
I believe we were at 31.
Yes. And that's for the entire series.
Correct. Unfortunately.
Mhm. And so we got to add another one.
I
So we're up
would
to
actually, I think we
32.
order get to add two
Okay. That's fair.
because they kiss like multiple times. And I look forward to increasing the kiss counts. So
Okay.
that
So
brings
we're
us
at
up to
33.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay. We can't add to our other kind of special categories. So future fun?
sure. I'll start with the probably the least interesting. Casey Williams will be back in season 6 as a union rep. Um, Fred the pharmacist will also be back in season 6 because he's going to start dating Val. Um,
Wow.
a fortune teller tells tells Val that she's going to be with someone who's well whose the letter associated with the person is an F, and Val's like F for pharmacist, and Fran's like pharmacist doesn't start with an F, honey, and Val's like no, his name is Fred, and then we see them out to out to eat together. Um, let's see. In season 6, Maxwell needs Fran to be more demure, so she wears another floor length black dress. But I would say that she misses the mark because it's entirely backless, unlike this dress, which was actually demure. Um, Next week, Maxwell will again propose to Fran, but she will let him out of his commitment. Um, Next week, he proposes to her out of guilt, and she sort of has this epiphany, if you will, um, that she wants a proposal because he loves her and doesn't want to live his life without her, not because he feels guilty. So she lets him out of it. But this
Mhm.
time he realizes he doesn't actually want to be let out of it.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not sure if I should say this one or not, but I'm going to go for it. This is the most juicy. Fran and Maxwell will eventually consummate their physical relationship. They will not do
Ooh.
so in New York or in a hotel room of any kind.
Huh. Okay.
It is not as risky as I just made it sound, but sort of, it happens in sort of the most ridiculous circumstances almost imaginable. So
Well, as fitting of the sitcom, right?
correct. But even as a sitcom, you're like, really? This is how you wanted this to happen? Really? Anyway,
Mm.
that's all I'll say
Okay.
for now.
Okay. So, then I guess we are to our episode ratings.
Yep.
As a reminder, we like to rate each episode from 1 to 5 lipsticks, one being the lowest, five being the highest. But again, it's arbitrary. We reserve the right to change our ratings at a later date. This is just for fun. And as always, let us know your thoughts as well. Um, but I guess this week I have to go first.
It's funny. For once, I actually want to go first because I know what I'm going to give this one.
Yeah,
So,
I can tell from your voice, what you're probably gonna give it.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
For
not good at
me
hiding.
for me, it's the dilemma because on the one hand, it was lovely to see, Maxwell and Fran, at the venue when they're listening to Michael Bolton, even though Fran gets kind of, weird. Um, but it was nice when he was, like, kind of holding her and they were swaying along to the music, and obviously that we got some kisses this episode. And it seems like we were moving forward in their relationship.
Right.
But as I mentioned, there's a couple of things that for me were a downer. The first one of which was in the pharmacy. Again, the entire time in my head, I'm like, HIPAA, HIPAA, HIPAA. And for anybody who's not familiar, HIPAA is like a law in the
Information,
United States.
privacy,
Yes,
Patient
for your
Privacy Act.
medical. Yeah, yeah. For basically like healthcare providers are not supposed to be just letting everybody know what your, healthcare needs are.
Right.
Um but also like at the very end when the pharmacist is like, "Hey, like I know what you both got, but I can keep quiet if you go on dates with me." I was like, "Bleh."
Yeah.
Very 90s as well. Um
Yeah. Also,
so
super predatory and gross, just in
yeah,
general.
yeah. So there's that piece of it. The other piece I already mentioned. First of all, as a side note, like why are Cece and Niles there?
Uh
I
huh.
could maybe understand Sylvia being like Fran's mom being there, but especially Cece. Like, why is she there?
That's
Aside
actually
from making
that's an excellent
go ahead.
question. That's an excellent
Yeah,
question because obviously
because
Maxwell would have called home and gotten Niles. It's
yeah,
Saturday night, so why would Cece be there? Unless, of
uh-huh.
course, she was there to find out like how the date went.
Yeah.
But
But again,
like,
we've established in the episode that the hospital's right across from the hotel. So it's not
correct.
like they had a far place to go or anything like that. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Aside from her being there to make that comment that there's a horrifying glimpse of the future, the 250-pound apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Right.
And again, it's the fact that they keep making it's not just an allergic reaction, right? Because the doctor made the joke about this happens sometimes with cortisone, prednisone, and Toblerone. So they're making a very big connection um, with being overweight, right? Not
Hmm.
it's not just swollen from a reaction. And by the way, dresses don't work like that. They don't grow with you
That is true.
because it was a very like slim fitting dress. It wasn't billowy or anything like that, but somehow it grew with her. Um,
If only our
That would
clothing
be a
could do
nice
that.
magic dress to have. You could
Yeah.
at any weight, you could wear it, but yeah, that's not how that works. But even from the get-go of this episode with the whole diet soup, there's a running things, and I should have mentioned that in the 90s nostalgia because I feel like there was a very big, like, diet culture in the 90s,
Hmm.
especially, like, mothers and all that kinda stuff. So anyway, all of that to say that that took away my enjoyment of this episode. Like, I wish they wouldn't have, like, chosen that route to go with, because again, they have a lot of, implications and all that kinda stuff. So anyway, that's gonna knock it down for me to a 4.
Hmm.
How
Okay.
about you? I'm pretty sure I know what you're gonna say, but
I'm giving
go
it a
for it.
5, despite
Yep.
the inconsistencies, despite the complete disregard of the existence of HIPAA, despite the datedness of the diet culture and the fat suit. This is just a fun episode to watch because I think I speak for everyone watching it. We're all cheering for Fran and Maxwell. And
Mhm.
anytime they take like a legitimate step forward, that is a good thing. Now, of course, with your list of inconsistencies, I will point out that if they were, reasonable people involved in a mature, realistic, grown up relationship, she would have been honest with him and been like, obviously we like each other, we're attracted to each other, but I have this thing, so let's like chill out. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
I also know there's a realistic possibility that when you're early in a relationship, you're going to try to hide all of your imperfections because you don't want to, scare or turn off your new partner. And I get that,
Mhm.
but also like they're living together, like we all know how this is gonna. We think we all know how this is gonna turn out eventually. We're just not quite sure on the timing. So like, anyway, but this is just a fun episode to watch, and it's just it's funny, and we just want good things for Fran and Maxwell, and they come so close, and yet they're still so far away. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sticking with a 5.
Okay. That's your prerogative.
Thank you.
And I knew from the tone of your voice it was gonna be a 5 for you.
I think this is one of my favorite episodes in the series. So,
Mhm.
because it's just so much fun to watch. I will point out that in researching for our recording tonight, I that's why I brought up prednisone and cortisone. They're not used exactly as they are suggested to be used on this show, and yet I'm still giving it a 5.
Mhm.
So anyway, I
Yep.
digress. That's
Anything
that.
else you wanna talk about, though, before we sign off for this week?
I don't think so. How about you?
I don't have anything else.
All right. That's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited The Nanny. Join us next time when we'll be discussing episode 113, One False Mole and You're Dead.
If you'd like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.